The original Destiny ran at 1080p resolution on both the PS4 and Xbox One. However, unlike other first-person shooters, the game only ran at a locked 30 frames per second, and it seems that Destiny 2 is going to hold on to that standard on the PS4 Pro. In an interview with IGN, Bungie's Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy explain why they are not able to achieve 60 FPS on the PS4 Pro, despite it being a powerful machine. I'm going to wade into this, and you, Mark Noseworthy, can flesh it out. The PS4 Pro is super powerful, but it couldn't run our game at 60 FPS. Our game's rich physics simulation, where collision of players, networking, etc. and like, it wouldn't run. Not enough horsepower there, Bungie's Luke Smith explained. Mark Noseworthy further explained why they're not able to achieve higher frame rates on the Pro, but there is tons of GPU power in the PS4 Pro. That's why we're doing 4K, right? It's on the CPU side. Destiny's simulation, like we have more AI, more monsters in an environment with physically simulated vehicles and characters and projectiles, and it's part of the Destiny magic. Like 30 seconds of fun, like coming around a corner and throwing a grenade, popping a guy in the head, and then you add like 5, 6, 700 other players in a public event. This is incredibly intensive for hardware. So it seems Destiny is too resource intensive to run at 60 FPS on the PS4 Pro. But will the Scorpio version run at 60 FPS? It seems unlikely, given that Scorpio players will most likely be matched with base Xbox One owners during multiplayer. Given that the Xbox One version runs at 30 FPS, it's unlikely the Scorpio will run the game at a higher frame rate. So console players, you're stuck with 30 FPS. PC players will however enjoy uncapped frame rates provided they have the hardware. Yesterday, it was widely reported that Microsoft had renewed the trademark for Scalebound, the action RPG that had been under development by Platinum Games exclusively for the PC and Xbox One before its high-profile cancellation earlier this year that created an immense blowback and backlash. The renewal was also accompanied by a rumor from an alleged insider that Microsoft had revived development of the game internally. The rumor was entirely unsubstantiated, so of course we didn't report on it. And that seems to have been the right call, because Windows Central, the outlet known for having a wonderful track record of Microsoft-related insider leaks, has confirmed that the rumor is bogus. Scalebound is not under development at any Microsoft-affiliated studio. The game remains dead. Of course, anyone sensible enough knew better than to put stock in that rumor. As great as Scalebound seemed, it looks like we'll have to reconcile with the fact that it's never truly coming to fruition. Of course, Microsoft did renew the trademark. That factually did happen. That was probably a routine, commonplace legal trademark protection application. The reports of the game being under development again, those were bunk. Don't pay attention to those. The original Life is Strange remains one of the triumphs of episodic storytelling for this generation. It was a great game by all accounts, and even though the finale is deemed to have been underwhelming and relatively disappointing, on the whole, we don't think anyone came away from the game less than impressed. Well, 2 bits of good news for you. First, the original series sold 3 million copies, as in to unique players, so individual episode sales aren't counted, worldwide, which is a fantastic number by any yardstick. Secondly, a sequel to the original is under the works. We don't know any more about it, such as whether it will take place after the original game or before it, or whether it will follow new characters entirely. But a new Life is Strange game is in fact in the works. For fans of the original, this should be excellent news. Fumito Ueda's games often take a long time to release, and when they do, they can be hard to digest for a lot of people. They can be riddled with technical glitches and deficiencies, they can be graphically lacking, and their mechanics can be eccentric. But if they click for you, then they can also become the most memorable experiences you'll have as a player. This has happened with Ico, with Shadow of the Colossus, and with last year's The Last Guardian. Now, Ueda is already looking ahead to his next project. Speaking at the Nordic Game Conference, Ueda discussed some ideas he has in mind for his next project. I can't talk about the details of my next project, but Shadow of the Colossus came out of the experience with Ico, going from a closed world to open world. When I completed Shadow, there was a moment where I wondered if I wanted to go around an open world again, and maybe I go back to a more closed space, spending a more intimate time with something in that space. That became the starting point for The Last Guardian. Now I've completed The Last Guardian and spent so many years in that game, maybe I go back to the Shadow type environment. Shadow of the Colossus is arguably Ueda's greatest achievement as a game designer, and one of the greatest games ever made, so him making another title in that vein will definitely be greatly appreciated. Nintendo has kept its E3 preparations low-key, leaving a lot of fans intrigued about what the company may have in store. Sure, but even more who are worried about there not being enough coming to the newly launched Switch. However, it sounds like there may be some notable announcements that we don't know of yet en route at E3. On its E3 site, Nintendo says, "Stay tuned after the Nintendo Spotlight as the experts from Treehouse play through upcoming games for Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo 3DS family of systems, show behind-the-scenes info, and maybe even share some surprises." Which is a pretty explicit way of saying there will be surprises. What could those surprises be? Hopefully something big and meaningful. Of course, we have to imagine the biggest ones will be saved for the Spotlight itself, right? Whatever it is, we'll find out at E3 next month on June 13th. Apparently, a rumor was going around that Deus Ex Mankind Divided developer Eidos Montreal was working on a new Thief title. Thief 5, as it's tentatively called, was leaked via a fake screenshot. And now Eidos Montreal's studio head David Anfossi has debunked its very existence. Over on Twitter, Anfossi attached the leaked image and said, "Apparently we're developing Thief 5 game, so now we have a title. We just have to build a team, a budget, forget it." Sounds like a hard enough no to us. Eidos Montreal isn't sitting idle though, despite the Deus Ex franchise being put on hold for the time being. Ubisoft will be launching a sequels to its popular open-world racing MMO The Crew, a new Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry 5 later this year, the company has announced and confirmed. As of right now, this is all we really know. More details are presumably incoming shortly, but for now, these logos are all we have, alongside the confirmation that the game exists and is due out later this year. The original Crew was widely considered to be disappointing, but with a lot of work put into an extensive expansion for the game, which overhauled gameplay entirely, its reputation has increased over time. With millions of players now playing the game, it is one of Ubisoft's big successes this generation, so it does make sense that it would get a follow-up. The new Far Cry is rumored to be set in Montana, whereas the new Assassin's Creed will reportedly take place in Egypt. For the sequel, let's hope Ubisoft applies everything that it learned from previous games right away, so there are no teething pains. We'll keep you posted on more details about these games, which presumably will launch on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. At this moment, we're already due to get remakes or re-releases of Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy XII, with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy XII The Zodiac Age respectively. However, that may not be the end of Square Enix reliving its glorious past. According to Takashi Katano, the director of Final Fantasy XII The Zodiac Age, if the company were to re-release those games on modern systems, it would go ahead and remake them fully rather than just remastering them. Final Fantasy XII is a PS2 title, and you look at the other titles in the series, and technologically, anything before the PS2 era is going to be quite difficult to do a modern remaster of to a suitable level of quality. Katano told IB Times, "That means a future re-release is far more likely to be a remake." Final Fantasy VI and IX are widely considered by fans to be among the greatest games in the series, so seeing full-fledged remakes of either of those games would definitely generate and create a lot of excitement and hype among series fans. That'll be it for this video. If you like what we're doing, please go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.